It's still loading. Still loading. YouTube acting a bit like Ferrari at the moment, a bit slow. Come on. There it is. Took your time, YouTube, but you're up and you're running. So the stream's up, the chat's up, we're all good to go. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to round 18 of the PS4 Tier 2 Elite Series here on Race Spec Esports. It's time for the Brazilian Grand Prix here at the legendary Autodromo José Carlos Pache. This 4.31 kilometer, 15-turn racetrack was first opened back in 1940, and like I said, has become one of the most legendary racetracks in Formula One. It's a place that naturally develops great racing. There are definite overtaking opportunities around this racetrack, located at turns 1 and 4, coming immediately after long DRS zones. And also this track just has a little bit of everything about it. It has some high, medium and low speed corners, has a really technical tight section in sector 2, long fast straights in the third sector and the opening sector as well. It really tests every part of the car and driver. And like I said, almost in any iteration of motor racing, this circuit just naturally develops magnificent racing, both in the real and virtual world. So even with a field size of 8 cars, I still have a little expectation that there's going to be some pretty damn good racing around here. But to see the field size, it's a bit disappointing, but that's okay. We still have cars on the track, that's the main thing. And another nice little thing is that with the Drivers' Championship wrapped up, with ACW taking that back in Mexico, we can worry about the Teams Championship, and thankfully all 4 of the key drivers in that Teams Championship are here. The 2 Mercedes drivers in iContrast and Ples, and the 2 Williams drivers of ACW and GeForce Dre. If I remember correctly, Williams are leading the championship on 388 points, and Mercedes are about 30 points behind. See if I can't get a more accurate number tally for you. It's about 30 if I remember correctly. If I scroll down here, where is it? There it is. Tier 2. That one. Alright. So yes, Williams on 388 points. Mercedes are in second on 352 points. So they're 36 points behind Williams. So the championship between Williams and Mercedes are very much on for the constructors' standings. Alfa Romeo are in third on 279, so it's very much a 2-horse race at this stage. But Williams are able to clinch up the Constructors' Championship if they have a solid weekend here in Brazil. But, with that out of the way, we have Alex Pato, the Italian, joining the session, so that increases the field size up to 9. Now, even with this small field, I'm imagining it's going to be incredibly competitive, as Chain Game has a bit of a moment out of turn 9. He's having a real mare trying to get this car back onto the racetrack. He has to be very careful he doesn't get disqualified, and he doesn't. With the track only being 4.31 kilometers, the times in qualifying are relatively close, so the competitiveness in the field tends to be, oh dearie me, quite close between all the drivers. So luckily we have that sort of work in our favour. Even with the small field size, I reckon drivers are still going to be fighting out there on the racetrack. I reckon it's going to be pretty close, particularly at the beginning of the race. At the moment, the current benchmark in qualifying is our newly crowned Elite Tier 2 Drivers Champion ACW, doing a 1 minute 6 .969, and that's quite a remarkable time to be in the sixes already, right at the beginning of qualifying. G-Force Dre on the medium tyre, that's Rhythms getting out of the way of Contrast here. Contrast himself is on the medium compound as well. We'll see what he can do. He has to try and beat Dre's time of a 1 minute 8.138. Let's see what he can do. Coming around the final sector, around turn 14, then around the final corner, turn 15. Up and towards the line, he does a 1 minute 8.128. How about that? 1/100th of a second separating P3 and P4 on the same set of tyres as well. So these two, like they have been on many, many other occasions, they're going to be scrapping it out in this race as well. Absolutely fantastic. Excuse me. But Plebs, tell you what, we're right on board, taking you around the Interlagos circuit, through the Center S and into Curva de Sol, turn 3. Down the Retroposta, opens DRS, goes to 8th gear, coming up towards 330 kilometers an hour into Descida do Lago. 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear, round turn 5, up the hill towards Ferradura, turn 6 and 7, this double apex right-hander, and into the hairpin of turn 8, down to 2nd gear, I imagine, there we go. Then into turn 9, nice and gentle, being patient. Round turn 10, into turn 11, Pico de Pato. And into turn 12, down the hill and up towards the most crucial corner on the racetrack, Junso, turn 13. Up the hill once again. I say it's the most critical corner as it dictates the entirety of the third sector. It's a very, very important corner to get right. Around the final corner, turn 15, crossing the line, and does a 1 minute 7.133. About 2/10 off Plebs, 2/10 off ACW, who was currently on pole position. Actually, just over 1.5 tenths, not quite 2/10. Chain game, wow, about to begin a flying lap, crossing the start-finish line, going through the Center S. 3rd gear, short shifting to 4th gear. That way you can get to 100% throttle very, very quickly. Drivers do have to be quite careful going through the Center S. It's incredibly easy to gather warnings through there, particularly at turn 2, either cutting the corner too much or running wide on the exit, using too much of the curb on the inside of turn 3. Up the hill around turn 6 and 7. A bit sideways there as well, the Dutchman. Has to be a bit careful that he doesn't push the car too hard through here, a bit like what Plez was doing. He was being really patient with what the car was doing through here. Didn't ask too much of the car too soon. Chain game throughout the rest of that second sector looks very much in control as Plebs has left the session. That's not good. So chain game coming around turn 15 now to cross the start finish line to set a 1 minute 7.170. So I reckon when Plebs left, that timer in the top right just went a bit out of whack. Alex Pato, the Italian, on a flyer, heading down the Retroposta into Descida do Lago. Actually, he pulls out of a lap there. You can see he's on 0 ERS. Let's see, anyone else on a flyer? ACW just might be, he is. So the current fastest driver on circuit. Let's see what he can do on his second flying lap. I'll just quickly check the Discord just to see what Plebs is up to. Alright, let's see what ACW is up to, because Plebs hasn't said anything in the Discord, so hopefully he'll be able to rejoin the session fairly quickly. There we go, fantastic. So ACW hasn't improved in the second sector. He's lost about a tenth or so because he was about 400ths up in the first sector, so he's lost about a tenth in the second, and he's pulled into the pits. So he obviously feels he can find a bit more time over the racetrack. but has elected to come back in, just reset himself, probably put on a fresh set of tyres and go out again. Oh, but he's being held up in the pits just a little bit because his teammate's going out to set another flying lap. Roscoe on an out lap. He's going to start his second flying lap of the session. He has to try and beat his current personal best of a 1 minute 7.6. Through the center res, sideways some more, but catches it well. But bit of an awkward moment there through turn 2. Wisely pulls out of the lap. I wonder if he's going to try and do a second one when he gets around to the third sector, or whether he's just going to pull into the pits. Contrast on the same set of mediums, same with G-Force Dre. Both of them on the same set of mediums they did their first flying lap on, so I reckon these two might try and do the alternate strategy, seeing as there's only 9 drivers competing in this race. 2 drivers have yet to qualify, and that is the Hairy Tomato and Alex Pato. That might be a strategic call from them, as they get to start on fresh tyres at the start of this race, and only 9 drivers in the field. You don't lose too much track position by not qualifying in this circumstance. But we'll see, though. We'll have to wait and see whether they set times at the end of the session. The G-Force Dre coming around to the end of the first sector, and he's up by half a tenth of a second. What about his main rival, iContrast, coming down the Retroposta across the first sector split line? He's up by almost half a tenth of a second. Go back to Dre, shall we? Heading around turn 8, second gear. Get gently on the throttle, keeps it in second. Does he short shift at all? No, he doesn't. He uses all of second. Very, very interesting. I would have thought you would short shift coming around turn 9, but doesn't. Down the hill through turn 12. Then it's an awkward run into the braking zone at turn 13. He's up by almost 4 tenths of a second. That's an awesome second sector. What about iContrast? How does he respond? He's up by almost 3 tenths. It looks like G-Force Dre is on top at the moment. He's going to cross the line to set a 1 minute 7.717. What does iContrast do? Around the final corner, it's a 1 minute 7.829. Fantastic. They're now separated by only a tenth of a second between Dre and Contrast. I wonder if either of them will gamble going onto the soft tyre at the end of the session to try and snag some extra track position, or whether they feel comfortable qualifying on the medium tyre and starting on the medium tyre, but we'll have to wait and see. Plev's on a flyer. He's currently matched his first sector, coming through the second now. Third gear, you can see a slightly different technique between Plev's and G-Force Dre. Second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, round turn 12 into Junso, and he's up by almost 2 tenths of a second. If he can keep up that sort of pace, he'll take pole position with 5 minutes remaining. Round turn 14, around the final corner, Arquibancadas, up towards the line, does a 1 minute 6.857. He does take pole position away from ACW, who is still in the pit lane, perhaps waiting till the end of the session. Rhythms on an out lap. If he can improve by merely 5 1/1000ths of a second, he snag P3 away from Chain Gang. Wow. Roscoe the pit. The only car that's going to be setting a flying lap is going to be Rhythms. Plebs, of course, is on an in lap after he just set that 6.8. Not a bad time at all, being 1/10 ahead of ACW. Like, that's how close it is here at Interlagos. It's actually ridiculous. Alright, Rhythms, see what you can do. German is making his way around the final corner, across the start finish line to begin his flying lap. Up towards the center S. Third gear, second gear, short shifts to third. Round turn 2 into Curva de Sol. Now, he sticks to the left-hand side. I've seen many quick drivers do that. They don't take a traditional out-in-out technique through turn 3. They just keep to the left on the exit, minimize distance. around the Cito del Lago, around turn 5, up the hill towards Ferradura. Probably take it in 6th gear. Yep. Into turn 7, then towards turn 8. That's invalidating, surely. Unbelievably, it doesn't. You have got to be joking. Is that an exploit in this game where you can use that much curb at the exit of turn 7? I have not seen that before. Up to 3rd gear around turn 11. 5th gear, 6th gear, 7th gear down the hill. Then into Junsao. He's matched his 2nd sector. A fine exit out of turn 14. Around turn 14, then around turn 15, the final corner on the racetrack, and no, he pulls into the pit lane. And G-Force Dre retires from the session. Quite a late retirement, but he feels comfortable with where he's at. He wants to start on the medium compound. But that was a lot of runoff that you're allowed to use there. I am very surprised you could use that much. Did not know that. There you go. But now with only 2 and a bit minutes left in the session, this will be the driver's final flying laps, and the first to set one is going to be ACW. Hello, Banana. It's good to see you're watching us. Alright, ACW. Wait, is he pulling into the pits? What's this? What's ACW doing? Oh, I know what he's up to. This isn't going to be a flying lap. He's doing another out lap. He's trying to warm up his tyres, get him into an optimum range, and probably trying to dump as much fuel as he can. So that way he has the lightest car possible for his flying lap. He just has to be aware of other drivers on flyers, but I don't think he has to worry too much. Just other drivers on outlaps. So the first driver to set a time will be VSR Roscoe, Red Bull driver. Current personal best of 1 minute 7.289 through the center S. Doesn't make the same mistake like he did before. Round curve de Sol. Onto the Retro Posta. 8th gear. Closing in towards 330 kilometers an hour. Hard on the brakes for turn 4. 4th gear. 5th gear. Uses all the curb. A bit sideways on the exit, but controls it well. Around Ferradura. Turn 6. Then turn 7. And into turn 8. Hard on the brakes. 2nd gear. Using all of the curb. Back up into 3rd gear for turn 9. Down to 2nd. Short shifts to 3rd. Then around turn 11. 1st gear at the apex to get that extra rotation. Down the hill round turn 12. Using that sort of tough grass? No, he doesn't. I've seen a lot of drivers use that sort of hardened grass on the exit of turn 12, because you don't actually lose time if you use it. Around the final corner, turn 15, he does a 1 minute 6.840. He goes to pole position, taking it by 16 1/1000ths of a second. Can anyone reply to that? I believe the first driver to try and do so is ACW. He's making his way around turn 11. Down the hill once again, coming towards the end of the 2nd sector. What does the sector split say? He's up by 0.2 of a second. It's looking like a mega lap time from our newly crowned drivers champion. Around turn 14. Around the final corner, turn 15, up and towards the line, does a 1 minute 6.681. He snatches pole position back with authority with that time. What about Fled? He pulls into the pits. He has invalidated. He cannot improve. What about Chain Game? What is Chain Game up to? He's pulling into the pits as well. His qualifying is done and dusted. So it's ACW on pole position. And a fine qualifying performance from Roscoe Arm. He gets 2nd in qualifying, so he gets a front row start. Rest of the field, we've got Plebs in 3rd, Rhythms in 4th, Chain Gang Wow in 5th, G-Force Dre in 6th, Eye Contrast in 7th, Harry Tomato in 8th, and Alex Parto in 9th. These two drivers not setting a lap time, planning to start on fresher tyres at the beginning of this race. And with P6 and P7 starting on the pound. It'd be interesting to see how these two fellas sort of go in this race in terms of strategy. And what are they going to do? I wonder, is it going to be a medium to soft, medium to hard strategy? What is it going to be? And of course, well, looking at it, with drivers opting to start on the medium compound, it appears like it's going to be a completely dry race, so I don't think rain will interfere. Though it is overcast. Oh boy, oh boy. So, weather may play a part in this, simply because there is cloud cover. I haven't seen any report yet in regards to the weather, so I'll just have to keep a nice open mind in regards to that. But the drivers will be deciding what kind of strategy to go with. I think from previous streams that I've done, the most successful one around here is the soft to medium strategy. It is just quite simply the quickest. The hard tyre though, it's not a bad tyre to go onto at all. So if you need to fall back onto the hard tyre, you won't be massively disadvantaged. It just seems like the optimum strategy around here at Interlagos is the soft to medium or medium to soft strategy. I haven't seen too many successful medium to soft strategies around here, simply because the drivers who attempted them had some wretched luck that went against them. The most successful one that I've seen was probably Bean Sandwich, who accidentally qualified on the medium compound in the Tier 1 American Series. He accidentally qualified on the mediums. He did a medium to soft strategy, and I believe he ended up finishing third, if I remember correctly. But the two leaders were well out in front of the field. So it'll be very interesting to see how all these strategies play out and whether that closes the field towards the end of the race. The drivers on their formation lap, we'll take a look at what the last two drivers on the grid will be starting on. So top 5 on soft, Dre and Contrast on the mediums. The Harry Tomato in 8th place is starting on the softs. Alex Pato in 9th will be starting on the medium compound tyre. So we've got a split at the back of the field, but those two drivers will be starting on fresh rubber. So they've got a slight advantage in terms of how long they can go in their first stints. It'll be very, very interesting to see how they play themselves out. Interval time, fantastic. Everything I wanted. Drivers trying to get some temperature into their tyres. Again, I don't know how the weather is going to play into this, whether it's just going to stay overcast or whether we are actually going to see some rain. I have absolutely no idea. Hopefully it's something that Codemasters add in to games into the future, where the spectator can see what the weather situation is like. But unfortunately we don't have that. But our field of 9 cars will be lining up onto the grid here at Interlagos. As I said on many, many occasions in previous races, not just here in Elite Series but in others as well, field size does not dictate racing quality. So, with the competitive nature of this racetrack, I still pray that we're going to see a fantastic race. But let's find out. We have 5 red lights, and it's lights out. And away we go here at Interlagos. We have a lap glitch off the start, fantastic. And I believe Rotskoam is going to have a go here down the inside into turn 1. Well off the circuit is Chain Gang. He's in last place now. Oh, cutting turn 2, oh dear. Surely he would have got a penalty of some description for that. But it's Rotskoam who gets a magnificent start. He is leading this race from ACW and oh, that won't do him any favours, running wide at turn 4. ACW in 2nd, Plebs in 3rd, Rhythms right behind Plebs in 4th place. Chain Gang, after cutting turn 2, after understeering massively at turn 1, finds himself in 5th. Contrast in 6th, GeForce Dre in 7th, Harry Tomato in 8th, and Alex Pato in 9th. So those fresh tyres haven't benefited them immediately with Harry Tomato and Alex. But we'll see them play themselves into this race as the laps go on. Roscoe with a magnificent start has built up a 7/10 margin over ACW, who closes in on the Red Bull coming through the first sector. And that completes the first lap of 36 here in Interlagos. And of course a lap glitch again, as you do on the second lap. It just sort of jumps up to 3 for some reason. Through Curve of the Soul go the leaders. Roscoe trying to pull away from ACW. Unfortunately, the Williams has got quite a bit of pace underneath him. These two, locking up from G4 Stray, running wide at turn 4, side by side through turn 5. Up the hill, G4 Stray has to give up the position. Contrast into 6th place. These two, I reckon, are properly going to scrap it out for position. They're on the same strategy. And they're also fighting for their respective team in the Constructors' Championship. So every point counts. Through the second sector, we have 2 trains that have sort of formed. One being led by Roscoe, the other being led by Contrast. Hopefully for these guys in the bottom 4, they can catch up a little bit. They don't want to lag too far behind at this stage of the race, so early on. Through turn 3. Down the Retroposta. Roscoe desperately trying to break the toe. You see there ACW just steadily closing in on the Red Bull in front. Gap being half a second. Plebs just in behind. Same with Rhythms. Same with Chain Gang. This is quite typical Brazil behaviour. In the opening sort of laps, we have these sort of groups form, or one massive group with the entire field, just in this sort of DRS train of sorts. But with a couple of drivers on the medium compound, they're sort of lagging behind the soft runners at this stage, which is what you're seeing here with Contrast, steadily losing time to Chain Gang in 5th place. Now I wonder if Dre's going to have a crack at Contrast, but first I want to see if ACW has a crack at VSR Roscoe. He is right behind the Red Bull, ready to pounce here down the inside at the beginning of the Steno S. He takes position, takes the lead of this Brazilian Grand Prix. Contrast not yet under attack from G4 Stray, but I reckon Dre is close enough to attack. Plebs right on the back of Roscoe, looks to the inside into Descida do Lago. Still has the inside line, pushes in wide, does so a little bit, but Plebs now into 2nd place. And critically, Plebs cannot be outside of a 1 second range at the DRS zone, or DRS detection zone, towards the end of this lap. If he is, ACW has the potential to just sail off into the distance. And that's ACW's goal right now, is to try and break out of that 1 second margin to Plebs. It's going to be very difficult. That gap is sort of hovering around 9.5 tenths coming around Junso. Alright, here we go. Here's the DRS detection zone, and Plebs is in. So he will get DRS here and close in on the Williams. Roscoe nice and in behind Plebs. Just over half a second separating these two. All that Roscoe needs to do is try and keep up with Plebs. Keep himself in this fight for the lead. Rhythms has lost a little bit of time to the top 3 and is now vulnerable to Chain Gang Wow in 5th place. Might have a look here. No, he won't. He'll stay in behind the German. He won't attack 4th place just yet. Dre and Contrast, as I thought would happen, are now starting to scrap. Up the hill towards turn 6. Dre cutting across Contrast's nose there, asserting his authority there coming into turn 6. That could have been nasty if he wasn't clear. Luckily he was. These two are seen on several occasions just scrapping it out. Most notably at Spa, these two had a proper scrap. It's fantastic to see they're doing it here at Interlagos as well. In behind is the Hairy Tomato in 8th place. he'd be absolutely furious about what's happening in front of him, because he's on he's on softer tyres and he isn't able to get by at the moment. Seems that the straight line speed of the Williams and the Mercedes is just a bit too much for Harry Tomato to capitalise using the soft tyre. Oh, sector 1 yellow flag. That's Chain Gang off the racetrack. He flick spins it round. There he is there. Just having a moment at turn 2. Spins round. He drops down to last place. He was in a battle with Rhythms. Now right at the back of the field. Hopefully he'll be able to catch up to the group in front. But right now, if he just finishes the race, he is 100% going to score points. Out in front, ACW is now starting to pull away from Plebs. The gap has opened up to 1.3 seconds. Coming around the third sector. Braking board's destroyed. Oh, you can't be serious. Dear oh dear. That'll be quite infuriating for anyone not using a racing line to not quite know where to brake there. It now appears this is the battle to watch. High contrast, 7/10 behind G-Force Dro. Steadily closing in on his rival through the center S, through turn 2 into turn 3. Gap still hovering around 0.6 of a second. Opens DRS, and that's a penalty for Plebs. 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. That will not help his chances of taking a win here in Brazil. Round turn 6 and 7 into turn 8. Gap steadily closes between the two. Round turn 9. Round turn 10 into turn 11. Gap still about half a second. Dre a bit wide there. He would lose a little bit of time. You can see that interval steadily close up around turn 12. And there's the Harry Tomato just in behind. Not really able to capitalise on anything at this stage. I imagine Tomato will be a bit frustrated with his situation, being on a softer compound and not really being able to fully stretch his legs on that tyre. Still, high contrast keeping G-Force Dre honest. And it appears to be the only genuine battle on the racetrack at this stage, unfortunately. The field is starting to spread out, which is something I haven't seen on too many occasions here in Brazil. Typically, from what I've seen in the past, you tend to have these big clumps of cars who sort of battle with each other, or sort of stay within DRS range of each other, I should say. But, at the moment, the top 4, all of them separating themselves by about 1.8 seconds at this stage. I am actually quite a bit surprised from that. I haven't seen something like this happen at Interlagos before. See if there's anything going on. Well, contrast is now outside of a 1 second range. Does he have DRS? No. So, can the Harry Tomato capitalise on this? Well, now contrast has got himself back within 1 second. He'll get DRS here down the Retro Oposta. There's Alex Parto and Chain Gang. Wow, that's a fantastic recovery. Just shows how much pace the Dutchman has. He's right on the back of the AlphaTauri. He's ready to pounce and continue his charge back up through the leaderboard. Through turn 8 into turn 9. Gap being half a second. Now through here, for both Alex and Chain Game, it's just about not making mistakes. There's not too many opportunities around here, except for maybe turn 11. Unless, of course, you're Alexander Albon. Then there's definitely... well, actually, no. It was Lewis Hamilton who sent the dive, wasn't it? But then again, Alex opened the door. Here comes Chain Game using DRS. I'm sure this will be a relatively easy overtake here. Down the inside, takes it with relative ease round turn 1. He's into 8th place now. His next target is the Hairy Tomato, and he's on the same, well, Chain Game's on 1 lap older soft tyres, as he qualified on that compound. He qualified on that set of tyres. So the Hairy Tomato technically has an advantage as he has younger tyres, but Chain Game, probably in the mood not to screw around, will probably catch up to the Alfa Romeo soon, I imagine. Contrast and Dre are starting to scrap it out again. The gap has closed up to about 7/10 of a second, heading through turn 12. Over the second sector split line, and up the hill once again around Junso. A bit of an awkward run, I think, from Contrast. He loses a little bit of time. You can see that gap go open up towards 9/10 of a second, so it was a bit of an awkward run around turn 13. He's closing in once again on GeForce Dre. Round the center S, through Curva de Sol. Hairy Tomato not too far behind, and Chain Game is gaining on the Hairy Tomato as well. Around the Cedar de Largo, 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear, then up the hill once again. Get a lovely aerial shot of the racetrack. You get to see some of the older parts of the circuit as well from this view. As contrast, that's an interesting warning there. Running too wide at the exit of turn 7, and the game decides that he took an illegal advantage from doing that, giving him a 3-second time penalty. Up the hill once again towards Junso. Can Contrast get a better exit? I think he does this time round. Uses a bit of overtake to keep up with the Williams, and he'll open DRS. But Dre is running low on ERS, so he's been using a fair amount of resources to try and keep Contrast at bay. So he might be a bit vulnerable in the following laps, simply because he has absolutely no resources left. You can see here Contrast has got a little bit, he's got about 30% up his sleeve that he can use. So he has gotten himself into a relatively good position to attack GeForce Dre. Around turn 8 once again. Now, like it was with Chain Game and Alex, with these two it's just about not making mistakes through here. Oh, Dre using all the curve at the exit of turn 9. Down the hill once again. Oh, GeForce Dre missing all of the apexes through turn 12 to turn 13. Dre a bit wobbly as well. I reckon he's feeling a bit of the pressure here. Around Subida de Boxes into Arquibancadas. Opens DRS, does by Contrast. And he's steadily reeling him in here. I reckon he just might have an opportunity heading into turn 4. Dre locks up but doesn't lose momentum. Into turn 2 and then into turn 3 around Curva de Sol. He'll open DRS up once again. Will he use any overtake here? No, he won't. He's willing to settle himself to staying behind Dre for now. Dre, there we go. He gets his first penalty. You can see there, all 4 wheels over the white line. The game gave him a warning. And now he's got 3 seconds worth of penalties that he has to deal with. Now both these two drivers have the same amount of penalties next to their name. So now they're now back genuinely fighting for track position. Around turn 11. Into turn 12 again. That's a far better line, Dre, from the previous lap. He actually hit an apex that time round. Into turn 13. Not quite using all of the exit curve by Contrast. He had a bit of a moment as well as ACW and Plebs are going into the pits. As, wow, Dre just sort of gives up the position, huh? Very little fight there from GeForce Dre, just letting iContrast by. But this might be a tactical ploy, as he will get DRS now, and is probably able to save up a bit of ERS by just staying within iContrast's toe. Excuse me. The ACW and Plebs are now on medium compound tyres. There's been an incident, that's Chain Game. Again, having a moment this time at turn 5. I believe this was by himself. He wasn't near anyone. He does have to be careful he doesn't spin out on his heated tyres. That would be absolutely shocking. The gap between ACW and Plebs being 1.9 seconds. Plebs has got a lot of work to do if he wants to try and take this win. Rhythm's going into the pit lane, going on to most likely a set of medium compound tyres. There we go, onto a set of mediums, and away he goes. So from the looks of things, this is just going to be overcast. Doesn't seem to be any chance of rain on the horizon. Rhythms comes out behind Plebs and ACW around the awkward pit exit. You have to be very careful that you don't go into one of the walls lining the circuit, and unbelievably Chain Game has decided to retire from the race, a race where you are guaranteed to score points. He's had enough, and that reduces the field down to 8 cars. See, where's this battle once again? Dre in contrast. Dre has fallen away a little bit from my contrast. He needs to get back a bit, well, he's within DRS range, which is the positive thing, but he is steadily losing time from the looks of things. He's gaining a lot here using the DRS. Harry Tomato into the pits, going onto a set of medium tyres, no doubt. Around the center S. Gap 0.7 of a second. Opens DRS again. Now, High Contrast is having to use a little bit of overtake here to keep Dre at bay. He's actually using a fair amount of overtake. Probably wasting a few resources there in my opinion. Unless of course he's planning to pit either this lap or on one of the forthcoming laps. But that would mean he'll be going onto the hard compound tyre rather than stretching the mediums out to a soft stint. But he hasn't used any overtake as of yet. He'll probably use some here at the exit of turn 13. And he doesn't. Interesting. Oh, he does now. There we go. Roscoe Arm into the pit lane. He'll be going on to a set of medium compound tyres. Now Rhythm should get an undercut on Roscoe Arm. Keep an eye on that Ferrari dot coming around the final corner. This is going to be close, I reckon. Oh no, I think Roscoe Arm should pit Rhythms here. Or maybe... Oh, this is going to be close between these two. Here we go, side by side down the Ritter Aposta. And I believe Rhythms will get it. He does. He's into 6th place, which is provisionally P3. So he does take it away from Roscoe Arm. That undercut has worked very well for the German. And he's on for a potential podium if he can keep that sort of pace up. But he's got Roscoe Arm right in behind. So a good battle, I think, is going to happen between these two. Hopefully a nice battle will happen between these two. So Plebs has overtaken Alex. He's only lost a couple of tenths to ACW. Gap is now 2 seconds. It was about 1.8 before the pit stops. Rhythms and Roscoe Arm into the center S. Round turn 1. Into turn 2. Roscoe Arm, I think he's close enough to attack here. Uses overtake. He'll open DRS. Surely Rhythms will go defensive. He does. But Roscoe Arm should get the overtake done before the braking zone. He's back into 6th place. Can Rhythms keep up with the Red Bull? and counter-attack on the next lap. Surely he can. But it's all about not making any mistakes through the second sector. 5th gear through turn 7. Into turn 8, 2nd gear. Then turn 9, 3rd gear. He cannot let Roscoe get away from him. Round the hairpin of turn 11. Gap is steadily increasing, showing that Roscoe does have good speed. Rhythms a somewhat awkward run through 13, cutting a bit too much of the corner there. As G4 Stray is going into the pits. That's an interesting call. What is he up to? Onto the soft compound tyre. So he has to do a what, 17 lap stint? No, that has to include lap 19, so he's doing an 18 lap stint. That's a very long stint on those tyres. I mean, it would be interesting to see whether or not that's even possible. Because he is fighting with Williams for the Constructors' Championship. This could be a critical blow if this strategy doesn't work. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Rhythms keeping up with Roscoe, gap 0.8 of a second. Into Junso, 3rd gear, 4th gear, 5th gear up the hill, using overtake. It's a good place to use overtake up the hill. Don't lose anywhere near as much speed. Opens DRS. This is what Rhythms needs to do. He needs to keep within 1 second. And if he's unable to attack, if he's unable to get close enough, to stay with him, be consistent, and just put him under pressure. Because then Roscoe would know, if I make a mistake at any point, I'm going to lose a position here. I might get a penalty, that sort of thing. Roscoe needs to be looking back at Rhythms. He needs to be a bit distracted. If Rhythms can't overtake him, can't battle him on track, then there's distract the living daylights out of him. Through turn 9. This is the critical sector. You cannot afford to make a mistake here. At the moment, both drivers doing a very, very good job. But for both drivers, just hit your marks. At the moment, they're matching each other. Rhythms, he's close. Is he close enough? Opens DRS. Cross the start-finish line. Alex gets a 5-second penalty. Not quite close enough into turn 1, but he just might be close enough. Coming around turn 3 into turn 4. Let's have a look. Opens DRS down the retroposta. Roscoe darting across the racetrack, trying to break the toe. Alex Pato coming out of the pits on fresh, soft tyres. He'll be going to the end on those. But he has to do about 16 laps on those tyres. That is a stint. Be interested to see how they fare, both Dre and Alex, particularly Dre. Contrast is still going. He's coming around the final sector. Will he be coming in this time round? He is. Shane Game has left the session. But here we go. So, Contrast no doubt will come out behind G4 Dre. Dre should get a very nice undercut here. But Dre has got a bit of a tyre situation that he'll have to deal with over the course of the rest of this race. Now, how much of an undercut does he get? It's a pretty big one. This Contrast, he's going to lose time in the pit exit. Will he lose out to Tomato? No, he won't. So he's got a 4.1 second margin to Dre, but he's on fresher tyres, so he just might be able to close some of that in. And of course, Dre, towards the end of the race, those tyres, I imagine, are going to be shocking. So I don't think this battle for 5th place is over just yet. But for now, G4 Stray is in front by 4.1 seconds. These two still keeping each other honest. Up the hill, using overtake. He'll switch it off, there we go. He'll open DRS, gap is half a second. Over the start-finish line. Closing into the center S. Is he going to think of an overtake into turn 4? Let's have a look. Opens DRS again. Not quite close enough. Roscoe Arm not darting to the left-hand side to break the toe. Oh, a sideways moment. A critical error. But thankfully, for the Red Bull, it's not fatal. Oh dear. That could have been a retirement right there if he didn't catch that. Absolutely, that could have been a retirement. So look down the hill. 6th gear. Into Junso. Up the hill once again, using overtake. It's a very nice way that Rhythms is managing his ERS, and he's closer here. He might just have a go into turn 1, and he will. Roscoe Arm not putting up too much of a fight, it seems, but Roscoe Arm should get DRS down the Retro Aposta. He just might be able to counter-attack, or just stay in behind the German and try and save up a bit of ERS. Let's have a look-see. Into Descida de Lago, and he's staying in behind. While that was happening, Contrast has set the fastest lap of the race. So he's closing in on G4 Stray. You can see that interval's now 3 seconds. It used to be 4 seconds. So Contrast has got some good speed, good car speed underneath him at the moment. Steadily closing in on G4 Stray. Roscoe Arm. Now he needs to do what Rhythms was doing just a few laps prior. Keep up with him. Put him under pressure. Try and force a mistake. Consistency is a wonderful thing in motor racing. I mean, it's always magical to watch someone who was just downright fast. It's always entertaining to watch. But when someone's methodical and consistent... Oh dear, a bit of a lag spike there. Holy moly. To watch someone who's methodical and consistent, it's always good to watch as well. Someone who just doesn't make mistakes and makes the other drivers just look silly. And right now, pace-wise, they're more or less matching each other. So it's all about consistency. Who will make the least amount of mistakes will come out on top in this battle. Just from behind, that gap between 5th and 6th is closing. Gap now 2.6 coming through the second sector. There is the Williams of G4 Stray, just out in front. Hunting down Dre at a rate of knots. Roscoe Arm just lost a little bit of time. Can't afford to lose too much more. It appears that the Red Bull has got superb straight line speed. He gained about 3/10 down the pit straight using DRS. So it seems that Red Bull's got good straight line speed, but perhaps struggling at corner exit because he loses a lot of time to Rhythms, particularly coming out of Junso. See, the gap sort of steadies itself around 6/10. Around the second sector. Both drivers relatively even. Coming out of the corner, Rhythms gains a little bit. This will be another area where Rhythms might gain a bit of time. Let's have a look. Sort of stays around 0.8 of a second, steadily increased there. Round Junso. This is where Roscoe Arm on previous laps has lost a fair amount of time to Rhythms. doesn't so on this occasion. He gets a good exit, keeps up with the German. This battle's good to watch, thankfully, because we still have a fair amount of racing to go. We've got, as of now, 10 laps to go in this race, and we have a battle for the final podium place. And we just might have a battle for the 2 places behind in 5th and 6th, because Contrast is still gaining, not quite at the rate that he was a few laps prior, but he's still gaining on G-Force Dre. Around the 2nd sector once again. Gap still hovers around 0.6 of a second through here. That's what I mean. These 2 guys basically even on pace, but especially through this sector. And obviously the car behind gains in the 3rd and probably the 1st sector as well, simply because of the DRS zones. Gap increased a little bit there, not by a lot though. Roscoe Arm still keeping up with him. Into the center as the gap is now 0.4 of a second through turn 2 into turn 3. I don't think Roscoe Arm is quite close enough to attack, but he's used a lot of ERS. Look at that, he's on 6%. Rhythms is on 11%, so both drivers using a fair amount of resources to try and hold their positions more or less. Rhythms using ERS to try and hold 3rd. Roscoe Arm using ERS to try and keep up with Rhythms, to try and not fall away from this battle. Alex and the Hairy Tomato starting to scrap. Alex on those fresher soft compound tyres getting by the Hairy Tomato. It's going to be difficult for the Hairy Tomato to keep up with Alex. It might be a wise thing to do towards the end of the race for him to pit and try and set fastest lap time, try and snag an extra point for himself and for Alfa Romeo. Back to these 2, shall we? Into the center S again. Roscoe Arm gains a lot of time. Look at that. Closes to within 0.3 of the Ferrari. Loses a fair amount of time through the center S and through Curva de Sol. He lost about 1/10 there. But he is pretty close on this occasion. You can see the amount of momentum he carries towards Rhythms. Using that DRS, how much of an advantage it gives the driver behind. Through the 2nd sector. Up the hill again, round turn 10. A bit of a moment, a squarely moment for Roscoe Arm. You can see that gap just increase a little bit. And even with that little moment, it can unsettle your entire rhythm. And Roscoe Arm, he's lost about 2/10. He needs a good run out of here. It's not the best run in the world. Rhythm's definitely got a better exit. But here comes the straight line speed of this Red Bull. Look at that gap just shrink massively down the pit straight. So clearly Roscoe Arm using lower wings, maybe a lower car as well, lower ride height, gives the car a better drag profile, allowing him to reach better speeds. Now this is going to be very interesting how this pans out between these 2, because the laps are ticking down. When they cross the line, it'll be 6 laps to go. And this fight is genuinely not over, and neither driver has gotten a penalty just yet. I don't want to look at the warnings though, because I feel like I just might curse someone if I do. So we'll keep it a mystery. Both drivers doing a good job keeping it tidy on the racetrack. Let's see what Roscoe Arm can do here. He's closer than he was on the previous lap. He'll gain so much time here into the braking zone at turn 1. What he really needs to do, hopefully he's recognized at this point that he gets a mega run using the DRS down the pit straight in particular. Not so much here. You can see he gains and gains, but he never quite gets himself in a good enough position to attack. So what I reckon he needs to do, just try and get the best exit that he humanly can out of turn 13. That's the critical corner. If he can get close enough through here in the second sector and get a good exit out of 13, he'll put himself in a fantastic position to attack rhythms into turn 1. Let's have a look. He needs to get maybe about 0.4 of a second coming into the DRS zone. That's how close he needs to be. Not quite close enough this time. But you'll see here, what, 8.5 tenths. How much will this shrink to? Opens DRS, 7 tenths, 6 tenths. Into the braking zone, about 5.5 tenths at the braking zone. He gains 3 tenths in that sector, down that pit straight. 6 tenths, 5 tenths, 4 tenths. So he gains about 2 tenths of a second down the retro aposta. So those are the gaps we have to keep an eye on between Rhythms and Roscoe. Roscoe has to be about, I'd say 4 tenths, maybe half a second if he gathers enough ERS to attack. Contrast as well has clawed himself onto the back of G-Force Dre, so this battle is genuinely on, and I hate to think what those tyres are like on Dre's car. We've still got a few laps to go. I wonder if he'll be in puncture territory. I just wonder. Roscoe very close this time round. Not close enough. He'll open DRS. Not close enough. It's a very methodical game going on here. Roscoe needs to time it. Rhythms needs to be consistent. And he can't waste his ERS. He needs that. It's his only form of defense against Roscoe. If he uses that too early, he's done for. Needs to use the ERS at the right time. So if he goes too early, that could spell race over for Rhythms. His race for a podium finish. Same with Roscoe. He needs to time his jump well. If he jumps too early, it might give Rhythms an opportunity to counter-attack. Jumps too late, he has no opportunity at all. As iContrast is overtaking G-Force Dre for 5th place. So the undercut hasn't worked for Dre. Loses the position. Falls in behind iContrast. And I don't think Dre should be able to counter-attack, to be brutally honest. Those tyres would feel absolutely shocking. Again, through the second sector. Got about 30%, almost 30% worth of ERS. Same with Rhythms. So in terms of resources, they basically have the same. In terms of pace, they've basically got the same. Oh, hang on a minute. That, I don't think he's got DRS. He doesn't. Roscoe does not have DRS on this lap, or at least down this pit straight. That is a crucial error at turn 13. He lost a lot of time to Rhythms there. Is he still outside of a second? Yes, he is, I believe, by about 35 1/1000ths of a second. That is such a crucial error there. One teeny tiny mistake lost him, oh, I don't know, about 0.3 of a second. But this could end his chance for a podium finish. Rhythms, he has to try and pull away from the Red Bull. The opportunity. If Roscoe can get back within 1 second, coming up to this DRS detection zone, coming out to turn 13, he might have a shot. But look at that gap, it's now 1.2 seconds. Ramjan, so he's not going to get it. His fight for a podium finish is over. Unless, of course, Rhythms makes some sort of catastrophic mistake on this final lap. And Dre hasn't given up here. I thought he would have. I thought those tyres would be absolutely shot to bits. I was wrong. He's keeping up with Contrast here. Sideways though. A crucial error. I think Contrast will get 5th place because of that. I'll just quickly have a look at penalties. Yeah, definitely. These two drivers on the same amount of pens. Oh, and Rhythms. He's actually pretty close to taking 2nd place here as well. Plevs has got 3 seconds worth of penalties. The gap is 3.1 seconds. This is going to be a close finish for 2nd place. It's now 2.9. Coming around the final couple of corners. Meanwhile, out in front, absolutely unchallenged, HCW decided to show us why he is the Drivers' Champion. Crossing the line to win here in Brazil. Plebs crosses the line in 2nd. Does he keep it though? It's going to be close. Oh my, Rhythms gets it at the line by 63 thousandths of a second. Plebs demoted to 3rd. Roscoe Arm in 4th. I Contrast finishes in 5th place. And G-Force Dre in 6th. Now that might be a crucial sort of detail in regard to the Constructors' Championship, with Plebs finishing in 3rd. Means he only scores 15 points rather than the 18 he would have got. High Contrast, driver of the day, absolutely fair enough. Uh, 15, 10, that's 25 points. With Williams, oops, my bad. Accidentally skipped the podium celebrations there, dearie me. So let's just have a quick look, because the Constructors' Championship is quite a telling point in this. Let's have a look. So 25 points to ACW. I Contrast got fastest lap, so he scores 11. That means he gets 26 points. With Williams, it is 25 plus 8, I believe. That's 6th place. 25, 18, 15, 12, 10. That will be 8 points. So that gives them 33. The gap before this round was 36 points, if I remember correctly. Yep, 36. And it's a 5-point swing. No, sorry, 7-point swing to Williams' favour. Increases it from 36 to 42. With 1 round remaining in Abu Dhabi, the maximum you can score is 25, 18 and 1 for fastest lap. That is for so they are able to get it. There we go. So 44 points they can score in Abu Dhabi. So the Teams Championship isn't over just yet between Williams and Mercedes. It will go to the final round in Abu Dhabi, though it's very much in Williams' favour, because basically they need to score absolutely no points, and for Mercedes to be 1st and 2nd in Abu Dhabi minimum. So there we go. All in all, not a bad race. I have seen much better around Brazil, but in terms of my sort of overall career, I've seen much worse than that. But not a bad race though. We saw that great battle for third, which actually turned out to be second for Rhythms. He got it just at the line as well. It was a fine drive from the German, a fine second place considering that he's had that buggy wheel of his. Luckily it held on throughout that race and he managed to claim a well-deserved podium. But this man seemed somewhat untouchable today here in Brazil, seeing as Isaac Kush wasn't here to try and challenge him. Plevs unfortunately just lost touch of him early and wasn't able to regain time. And that 3-second penalty of his demoted him to P3. But not a bad race at all. But I think that will end round 18 of the PS4 Tier 2 Elite Series here on Race Spec Esports. Next week is the season finale at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix at Yas Marina Circuit. The $1 billion waste of time, is what I like to think of it. In my opinion, it is unarguably the worst racetrack ever designed, purely because it costs so much and provides so little, really. At least with circuits such as Sochi, for example, it was a circuit designed with certain sort of parameters. With Sochi, they had to design it around pre-existing Olympic facilities. With the Yas Marina, it was basically a sandbox. You could build whatever you want. It's supposed to be the holy grail of tilkodromes, and it's anything but that. It's probably the exact opposite, to be honest. But that will end this week. I hope you've all enjoyed our little 8-car race around Brazil. But yeah, I think that will wrap it up. I've been the Smeg. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for round 19, the final round of the championship at Yas Marina for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Until then, good night.